Hello, and welcome to the Imago Nutrition Podcast, where we answer your questions and give you practical nutrition strategies to help you and your family flourish. I'm Danielle, and Mark is with me today, and
Hello.
we are just going to talk about an interesting topic. So if you are a woman in perimenopause or in menopause and are frustrated with weight gain, or if you are headed in that direction, and you're just curious about the topic or confused about conflicting information. So we're hoping that this podcast today is going to give clarity and empower you to take greater control of your health outcomes, as well as just gain some understanding of some fundamental principles. So where we're going to go today is first, we're just going to talk what is menopause briefly, and then we'll just give a couple myths to talk about, and then also just what we can do about this information that we're going to talk about today. So, hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's going to be fun for those that can suffer through a man daring to, at times, talk about menopause. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, Mark has done the majority of the research for this episode, but I'm just going to briefly start here with just a definition of menopause. So menopause is a natural biological process marking the end of the woman's reproductive years. And it is also just when you have 12 consecutive months without a period. So hormones are changing a little bit, and the symptoms that can occur for women during this time or around this time are a little frustrating. So hot flashes, I've heard definitely as one of the top most frustrating symptoms, as well as night sweats or cold flashes. Definitely difficulty sleeping or insomnia, I've heard a lot. Emotional changes or irritability, mood swings, maybe some mild depression. And then just like some worsening PMS symptoms or urinary urgency can also be some symptoms of this time period in a woman's life.
All right. Should we dive in?
Yeah. So, Mark, if you want to just go through a few myths, what's floating around of information out there about menopause.
Yeah, and we just got 3. I know there's a lot of conflicting information. Welcome to the age of the internet, right? And I dive into these conversations quite a bit online, and particularly on Threads these days. Not so much, Facebook and Instagram, but certainly on Threads, and jump into great conversations with fitness trainers, women that are struggling through this. And I would say over the course of the last couple of years, as I've dove into these conversations, I'd say there's probably top 3 myths. There's 3 myths I think that really have come from these conversations. Again, particularly in terms of controlling or achieving like a healthy body weight, right? And so it's not related to, necessarily sleep issues or some of the hot flashes or some of the other things or depression or anything like that, but particularly around body composition, which tends to change quite a bit during menopause. I've heard it over and over is that quote unquote, the menopause weight gain is real. I've heard that a lot. Like, the menopause weight struggle is real. And while weight gain is certainly associated, it's highly associated with menopause. This is really good news, and it is going to come from a guy. It's not caused by menopause inherently, and I choose my words carefully. Okay, so things can be highly associated without being causal, right? And so we'll get into that just a bit. But this is actually really good news. As you said, like we want this to be an empowering, encouraging episode. And part of what's empowering is tearing down some of the myths that surround these topics. And so the good news is that while weight gain is highly associated with menopause, it's not caused inherently by it. Okay. It's not that the menopause switch flips on and suddenly the body begins gaining weight as a direct mechanistic response. Okay. So real quick, hormones are simply, beautifully, and complexly chemical signals in the body. And they influence many things. No one disagrees with that. One of the common responses I see in the threads is just like, oh, you're saying that hormones don't matter. No one is saying that. They influence many things in ways that we still don't even yet understand. But here's the beautiful truth is that hormones as chemical signals cannot create energy. Okay. So if you remember back to, I don't know, third or fourth grade, when you learned about the law of conservation of energy, that we cannot create nor destroy energy. We can only convert it or store it, right? And so a chemical signal running through your body cannot create energy. Okay. And excess energy, and by the way, calories are a form of measurement of energy. Excess energy is required in order to initiate the fat building process in the body, and that's known as adipogenesis. Okay, so without excess calories or energy in the body cannot even begin to build fat. Okay, that is the initiation point. It is the required substance in the body in order to begin building fat. This is really good news because you can begin to understand and control this. Okay, so again, hormones can influence many things, but if the body does not have excess energy in it, on average over time, it cannot begin to build fat. Okay, so that's good news. That's probably the first biggest myth, is that menopause / hormones inherently cause weight gain, and that it is simply a chemical trigger that gets turned on, and there's nothing you can do about it. I think that's that's very disempowering to women. It basically says like, oh, your body just broke in this interesting way and there's nothing you can do. You might as well just not even worry about it and just let nature take over. Right. So
I'll just, one thing I have as an example of what the picture or image that comes to my mind when I think about this is almost like the current in a river getting stronger. So like you're swimming along and here comes menopause and all of a sudden the current is harder. Like you have to actually just work harder to maintain your weight, just because of all the influences on your sleep. And if you're not getting adequate sleep, then your appetite hormone goes up. So
correct.
Those are the influences you're saying about hormones do impact us.
Yep.
But it's just that the good news is that chemicals aren't calories. And so we're not gaining weight. It's that other factors in our life are making it harder for us to maintain
100%
weight.
Anyone that says life is not different during menopause, as a man who's never experienced it, although I think I kind of joked on a call with you that like I'm at the age now where I'm starting to experience menopause, which is like a drop in testosterone. My body is changing from a hormonal perspective. I'm 44 years old, right? And so, and I joked it's menopause. I'm sure I'm not the first one to call it that, but like, yeah, that's the, like, life is anyone that says your body is not changing during menopause and you just need to do what you've always done clearly has never worked with anyone, has clearly never actually walked people through this. And so you're right. Like the influence of hormones is palpable. It's absolutely real. That exists. Anyone that tells you otherwise, just unfollow them on social media. Right?
So yeah, when you have all those influences, that means you just need more tools in your toolbox. Like stuff that you didn't even think about having to utilize before. Like what do you do when you're stressed or your sleep is poor? Like some people have never experienced that. And then all of a sudden menopause happens and then their sleep is horrible.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think
we just need enough tools.
Yeah, I think one, you need awareness of it, right? Like that's part of what we're trying to do is you have to first have awareness of it. And a lot of times when people are seeking awareness of like, how's my body changing or what can I do? They're getting a lot of false information. It's like, oh, it's menopause. You're going to gain weight. That's just inevitable. That's inherent. That's just part of it. And they're like, oh no. And then they don't seek out the tools, right? So that they can have healthier outcomes. So you're right. Anyone that's like, oh no, you'll feel the exact same, clearly doesn't know what they're talking about. And to your point, things like sleep influence hormone, right? Also fascinating things like mindset. We've got direct evidence that shows that there was a milkshake study done way back. I haven't looked at that study in a long time. It's, I don't know, I forget how old it is, like maybe 20, 30, something like years old. But they actually measured ghrelin, the hunger hormone, and they gave people the exact same milkshake. They told one group that it was like tons of sugar and just sweet and delectable a dessert. And after having that milkshake, their ghrelin was actually really high. They were still very hungry. They gave another group the same milkshake and told them this is nutrient dense. This is a lot of whole foods and high protein, all that sort of stuff. And they measured their ghrelin and it was not nearly as high as the control group, right? So all this stuff, the mindfulness, the mindset, the awareness, all of this actually plays into the hormones. But yeah, the hormones are real. Like if you're sleep is getting more disrupted. If you're having increased cravings, if you're having increased fatigue, that matters. But the good thing is that the chemical signaling is not the mechanistic cause of weight gain. So that's probably number one. I would say the second myth that I see come up most often is that metabolism slows during menopause. This one is pretty straightforward nowadays. Okay. We have a relatively new study, pretty much the gold standard in metabolic testing. And a study came out titled Daily Energy Expenditure Through the Human Life Course. We've referenced this several times on this podcast because it's a pretty perennial study at this point in history and in research. And so if you want to look that up, that's the title, is Daily Energy Expenditure Through the Human Life Course. Here's the really good news. Metabolism, energy expenditure does not decrease during the years of menopause. In fact, our metabolism, long story short, spikes and peaks at age 1. The highest your metabolism will ever be is when you're 12 months old. It decreases about 3% each year until you reach your 20s. And then it stays steady until about 60 to 63 years old. So from 20 to 63-ish, 60, we'll just call it 20 to 60, your metabolism, our metabolism, stays steady. And some people are frustrated by that. Why? Because their experience doesn't necessarily seem to reflect that. They're like, that has not been my experience. There's other things involved. However, the good news is that metabolism does not suddenly tank. And by the way, even after 60, 63, it decreases only by about 0.7% per year. Okay, so that is not nearly enough to cause any sudden or significant weight change. So that's probably the second biggest myth, is that, oh, my metabolism just slows. I used to be able to eat whatever I want. Now, if I eat a donut, I gain 10 pounds, right? And it's just causing this rapid excessive weight gain. Therefore, it's just out of control. And there's nothing I can do. The good news is that's a myth as well. And I know we've talked about that a lot on this, Danielle, but curious if you have any insights from the metabolism standpoint.
Yeah, I think the biggest one that comes up for me is in your 20s and 60s. That's, you can think about how active you were in your 20s, and then you can think about how active you were when you had young kids, you're chasing them, and then all of a sudden, the activity level or the dining out increases. So it's just that's the time of life stage that people decrease their activity level. That's when we see the most change, I think, in activity levels. 20 to
and
60.
And for even getting into the fact that I've also been on another tangent looking into evidence based around what we do in terms of nutrition and fitness around marriage. And marriage is a significant marker in which people, here it comes, people stop taking care of their body, right? Like I would hope that now you have more reason to take care of your health. Now you have more reason to exercise with tenacity and to eat with purpose. The exact opposite tends to take place. And so you see people start to decrease their activity, decrease their exercise just at the point of marriage, right? And they take worse care of their body, or they start caring for kids. And that's maybe that's a good thing, right? But then they start to feel selfish if they do, work for themselves, et cetera. And so, those are the years where, when you're in high school and college, you're on someone else's budget. Probably you don't have the discretionary spend. You can't go out to eat, as much, et cetera. So the good news is that metabolism does not slow during the ages that a woman would typically go through menopause. And then I'd say the third, and this one I got a little granular, can I confess? I wanted to actually run the numbers on this. I'm going to give me 30 seconds to run really quickly through some numbers, but I'm going to sum this up real fast, because another myth I think, I've seen come up, the third one is probably that once someone realizes, okay, chemical signals can't cause weight gain. Okay. And then, metabolism doesn't slow, but then they've heard, but you lose muscle during menopause. And so they're like, oh, wait, that's associated with my basal metabolic rate, which is true. Muscle is associated with basal metabolic rate. So they say, well, I'm rapidly losing muscle, therefore it's being offset. So what I used to eat, but now I'm burning less because I'm losing muscle, therefore that's why I'm gaining weight. But here's the reality. And it's beautiful, it's granular, but bear with me. The average weight of a woman in her menopause age years in America is 170 pounds. Okay. The average muscle mass of an adult woman ages 36 to 55 is 29 to 31%. That means the average woman in menopause is about 170 pounds, okay? And she has about 49 to 53 pounds of muscle. Okay, we have seen in research, we have tested this even in people that are bedridden, in bed rest, that they lose about 3 to 8% of their muscle mass per decade. Okay, per decade after 30, 3 to 8%. So what does this mean? I ran the numbers. I won't go through all the particulars after that, but the average muscle loss would mean that a woman in menopause burns between 9 and 25 calories less per day per decade. Okay. That is less than 4 almonds at the high end. All right. So what this means is that you do not lose muscle at a rate fast enough to suddenly drop your BMR and cause sudden weight gain. Okay. And even better is that muscle loss is not inevitable. Okay. It is, and I don't say easily flippantly, but it is pretty easily offset. Right. So you're like, oh, I'm just going to lose muscle. No, that's if you don't do anything, right? Like that's if you lay in bed through all of menopause, you will lose muscle at a rate of 3 to 8%. Okay. It is not inevitable. You can relatively easily, relatively simply offset that muscle loss with a little bit of strength training, a little bit of protein, and a little bit of sleep. Those are the 3 greatest signals you can send your body to maintain and or build muscle. Okay. So again, the top 3 are that, okay, menopause is just a switch or it's a chemical signal that begins storing fat. There's nothing you can do about it. It's not true. Number 2 is that, oh, my metabolism tanks during menopause. That's why I'm eating the same, but gaining all this weight. Metabolism doesn't change. And then 3rd is that, well, I'm just losing muscle really, really quickly. That's why it's being offset. And I'm eating the same as I did, but I'm putting on this weight. The good news is muscle does not get lost at a very rapid rate, and you can easily offset that. Okay. And so anything on the muscle side of things, Danielle, I knew I kind of went through those myths pretty quick and there's some detail there, but I'm excited to get to the plan here in a second.
Yeah. I mean, when you say easily offset, I think you're going to tell us how much weight training in a minute.
And it's less than people think, because a lot of people are like, oh, this guy's going to tell me to go lift weights 6 days a week. Nope. I don't even do that. Okay. So I've got good news on that front. We'll get to that here in a second. So this is all good news, by the way. I truly do believe this is good news. This is empowering for women, as frustrating as this time in their life can be. This should be empowering, because what it means is, while it's not easy, achieving a healthy body composition or a healthy body weight, which is key for so many health outcomes, we would be remiss. Remember, body weight does not determine your dignity, value, or worth. Okay. However, it is a really good predictor of health outcomes, and we need to reconcile that. Okay. And so the good news is that achieving that healthy body composition during menopause is within your control. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what to do. If you've been listening to the podcast for any amount of time, you may have heard this framework, because whether you are entering menopause, whether you are in menopause, whether you are a man who will never go through menopause, these are things that we should be focusing on. And so what is true for weight loss during menopause is actually just good lifestyle habits. That's the beauty of it. Okay. So and I should also say, and Danielle, I know you would agree, this all requires individualization. To assume that we could just give you a template that's going to work, every woman is different. Every woman listening to this, you are different. Okay. Mm-hmm. Your experience through menopausal years will be different, even from each other. Mm-hmm. Right. And so all that's to say, this definitely requires individualization. If we can help, we are here to help, but we're also here to give you free value. So we're going to give you some general guidance that is absolutely true, but please know that this, of course, cannot be individualized to all 8 of our listeners, right? I think maybe there's 9. I don't know. We'll see. So, no. So this does require individualization, but in general, here are a few pillars for weight loss during menopause. Number 1 is reconciling this concept of energy balance. Okay. So again, if hormones can't cause weight gain, your metabolism does not decrease during menopause, if you're not rapidly losing muscle, so that your basal metabolic rate is decreasing to offset, you have to reconcile that calories do matter. Okay. And so one of the things that I recommend people do is, and here's a starting place, just a starting place, free tool that you can give that I've had clients, male, female, menopause, non-menopausal, have used this, and it's been really, really eye-opening. Here's what I would recommend as a starting point. Just open up a simple spreadsheet. You can do it in Google Sheets. You can do it in Excel, whatever's free. If you've got a Mac, they've got, I think it's called Numbers, whatever you need to do. Just do Monday through Sunday in a column and start tracking your daily body weight. And at the bottom of each week, just run a very simple average calculation, equals average, drag it down those cells, and have it just give you your average weekly weight. Okay. So weigh in every day for a decimal point. So it's got a decimal point so you can see progress with inside of a pound. Run your average weekly body weight. Get away from worrying about daily fluctuations. Just drop that. Don't worry about it. Your body fluctuates every time you take a sip of water. Every time you go to the bathroom, your body's fluctuating. Every time you eat, it's fluctuating. As it goes throughout the day, it's constantly fluctuating. Get away from worrying about that. What you want to start looking at is your average weekly body weight. If your average weekly body weight is going up, you are consuming more calories than you're burning. I don't care what anyone says. That is data from your body telling you, in concert with the law of conservation of energy, because it can't create energy, can't destroy it, can only convert it or store it. That will tell you if you're consuming more calories than you're burning, and how you can, kind of change those lifestyle things. We can certainly help you with. But at the end of the day, if that is going up, you're in a positive energy balance. If it's staying the same, you're in a neutral energy balance. You're consuming the same amount of calories as you're burning on average over time. And if it's going down, you're in a negative energy balance. You are consuming fewer calories than you are expending on average over time. Okay. That tool alone, I have seen be helpful, because then people begin looking at their average weekly weight and then self-auditing their eating habits. And so if it's going up, they start to find little places where they can maybe consume fewer calories. I didn't say less food. I said fewer calories. Those are two different things, right? So take a look at that average weekly body weight. That's going to be a sobering reality of data from your body as it relates to energy expenditure. And then begin making small lifestyle adjustments over time. Don't radically change. Don't cut out all the carbs. Don't try to avoid all sugar. Don't start running 18 miles a day, right? Don't do anything dramatic. This needs to be slowly, sustainably over time. Okay. And that, just a simple spreadsheet for free that you can make on your own, can tell you that data from your body if you're, again, weighing yourself every day to a decimal point and then running an average. Okay. And then second piece, start focusing on more and more and more whole, minimally processed foods. Okay. We recommend the 4 pillars. 4 pillars are lean meat, seafood, and dairy. That's 1. Fruits and veggies. That's 2. Whole grains. That's 3. Nuts and seeds. That's 4. Okay. If you have any questions about that, we have a free page on our website. You can go to imagonutrition.com. In our navigation, it says 4 pillars. Just click on that. You can read through that, take a look at those 4 pillars in more depth. But highly recommend.
It's not just we that recommend that. It's kind of from the Mediterranean.
Yes, true. Yes. So we have basically just given it a name, but that is the sum total of virtually every angle on nutrition that you could possibly throw at it. Every time I read a new study about what is true and good and incredible about nutrition, as it relates to like food choice, it fits into those 4 pillars, right? It's just, it's amazing. So all we're doing is putting a name on how our body was designed to interact with these nutrients. And that'll give you, by the way, if you focus on lean meat, seafood, dairy, fruits and veggies, whole grains, nuts and seeds, that is going to inherently give you a focus on protein and fiber. And that's what we recommend. Carbs and fats are amazing. We need them, but you don't need to necessarily worry about them. Let those sort of play themselves out through your natural preferences, right? I think I eat more carbs. I think, Danielle, you tend to eat more fats, right? And then sometimes I oscillate. It just depends on the day, depends on the week. Like, it depends on if I'm playing soccer or if I'm not. Like, and for you, like having been a D1 athlete, like that has adjusted and changed with seasonality and personal preference, and that's okay. But protein and fiber are incredibly important. So, and then last, and I want to get your thoughts on that, Danielle, or the energy balance in general as it relates to, what to do in menopause to control or reduce, body, or get your body to a healthy place. This one's a challenge. I do highly recommend. I've gone through a personal journey with alcohol, candidly. A couple years ago, I really, really scaled back. And I still ebb and flow on this thing. I still consume alcohol from time to time. I have not completely eliminated it, but I do highly recommend, particularly during menopause, particularly if you're struggling with your weight, particularly if you're struggling with sleep, okay, depression, some of the symptoms that we talked about, I highly, highly recommend that you severely reduce, if not all out, eliminate alcohol. Again, I have not eliminated alcohol, but I have severely reduced my intake. And everything from the fact that alcohol increases your baseline cortisol, to the fact that it is a sleep disruptor, to the fact that it offsets your hunger signaling. People tend to eat a lot of food when they're drinking. They tend to not sleep well after they've drank, which means they wake up and they have heightened cravings the next day. It becomes very cyclical, right? And so just know that alcohol is not helping in any way. As someone that has a deep, like, I love whiskey. I do. I genuinely, like, I enjoy whiskey. I enjoy craft beer from time to time. I am not a teetotaler. However, it's a toxin and it has zero health benefit. Okay. I know some people are going to be like, no, it actually reduces my anxiety. No, it's increasing your baseline cortisol. Okay. Just because you use it to check out of reality for an hour or so doesn't mean it's actually doing what you think it's doing in the long term. Okay. Mm-hmm. So anyways, that was kind of a harsh ending to the whole energy balance thing. But so the first thing, what do you do if you're trying to maintain or trying to control this weight is focus on this energy balance. And that's just a few pieces underneath that. Thoughts on that?
No, that's good. I mean, you showed that you don't even have to count calories. It's not, where you have to be. It is a very accurate and quick method to know exactly how many calories you're consuming in a day, but you can see that you just can focus on other things and still show your body weight average going down over time.
Yeah. So. And that's really powerful. Again, I have a male client. He's not a client. He was a former client. And that was pretty much all he did. Ended up never tracking his calories. He just needed to know if it was going up, staying the same, or going down. And then he just started making small changes. And we would meet for coffee like once a month and talk about it. And he was doing it on his own. I still see him out in the neighborhood walking consistently. Like that was the piece that, unlocked it for him. So I think it's key. So
one thing you said about like eating less versus eating
fewer calories.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Like eating a lot of fiber, that's a lot of food, then that's a lot less calories too. So that's why I always talk about having half your plate of veggies for lunch and dinner. That's really powerful. That one trick right there.
It's huge.
Make a big difference.
I'm telling you, feeling full while losing weight is the way to do it. Feeling full while losing weight. I'll say that again. You heard me correct. Feeling full while losing weight is the way to lose weight.
It's possible. Yep.
It's the life.
It's totally possible.
So we talked about this. So speaking of, strength training, and we talked about that. Yes, you can offset relatively simply. It's going to require work. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as much as you think it is. Strength training, again, I believe every person should be strength training in some way, shape, or form if possible. Okay. So here's the good news. What I would recommend is simply a minimum of twice a week. Twice a week. Okay. If you're doing once a week, depending on how you're lifting, chances are you're not going to you could probably maintain your muscle. You're probably not going to grow it in that regard unless you're very, very dialed in on your programming. So what I generally recommend is like two at the very least. Again, this is not individualized. At the very least, baselining this whole thing twice a week. And if you're doing just twice a week, it probably needs to be full body. And it probably needs to be focused on your primary muscle groups. That would generally be like your chest, your back, and your quads, hamstrings, right? So just think of it as push-pull legs, right? Doing that in a workout, push exercises, pull exercises, and lower body
arms?
Exercises.
Not a primary muscle group?
No. So I would consider those secondary. Like biceps are going to be secondary to your back, right? Triceps are going to be secondary to your chest. That's why I would say push, pull legs, because every time you push, you're engaging your chest and your triceps. predominantly, and shoulder. You should do some overhead push as part of that day. And then anytime you're pulling, you're activating your back and your biceps. So I say your back is your primary muscle group, your biceps is your secondary.
The bigger ones.
Yep. So as you focus on the primary ones, as long as you're doing like compound movements, right, which is basically multi-joint. Sorry, we're getting too into the weeds, aren't we? As long as you're pushing something away from you, you're getting both chest and triceps. As long as you're pulling. Yes, correct. As long as you're pulling something toward you, you're activating your back and your biceps. And if you're doing some sort of lunge, squat, hip hinge, you're activating, your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings, etc. So again, requires individual stuff. I don't do personal training anymore, but I absolutely encourage and help and give guidance on strength training to all my nutrition clients. And if it gets outside my scope of what I do know, I regularly strength train. Happy to also recommend people to personal trainers, to online, virtual trainers, in-person trainers. That can be a big part of this as well, but highly, highly recommend strength training, particularly during menopause, particularly after the age of 30, when our body is going to begin slowly, very slowly, not crazy like people think, but very slowly begin, losing muscle. So relatively easily, you can offset the muscle loss, and ideally you could actually do some muscle gain. Okay. But also don't let people be like, oh, if you gain muscle, you're just going to like jazz up your metabolism. One, it's hard to gain muscle. You have to push yourself to gain muscle. And if you gain a pound of muscle, which is amazing, you're going to only burn about 6 more calories a day. Okay. So like that, also people in the like personal trainers selling services are like, you want to boost your metabolism? Come lift weights. Like, yes, but it's not like you're jumping 300, 400, 500 calories after a year of lifting weights. Okay. So it's not as much as some people say, but it's also not as hard as others make it out to be. So I would say minimum twice a week. And if you do more than that, then you can start to break it into like just a push day, just a pull day, just a leg day. You can start to split it differently, but at baseline, twice a week, full body. All right. Number 3, cardiovascular training. Okay. Now this could be as simple. I'm going to give you a baseline entry on this. I'm not going to tell you need to go start doing hill sprints with a backpack or anything like that. Right. But at the very least, the recommendation is about 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity. Okay. And so here's the simplest way that many of my clients use to achieve this. Here's what it could sound like. That might sound like a lot. They're like, what is that? 2.5 hours? Yeah, that's a brisk 30-minute walk 5 days a week. Okay, so you might be someone that could do Monday through Friday would be easy. You got a nice regimented way of doing that. It could be that, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, plus my weekends is 5. It could be, whatever that is. I have some clients that do a walk in the morning and a walk at night. They'll do that 3 days, and they're at 6 walks a week, and they're done by Wednesday night. Right. So all that's to say 150 minutes, but I would say it needs to be brisk. It's not a lazy walk. It's a purposed walk. You just need to get your heart rate up a little bit. It should not be the same as when you started, and it shouldn't be the same while you're going. Right. So that's key. And there are just an array of benefits like strength training. By the way, I should have started by saying like weight loss is like the 88th reason to do strength training. It's like the 89th reason to do cardio. Right. And so, as is sometimes common in the fitness industry, whether you're in menopause or not, they say, do cardio for a longer life, do strength for a better life, and so these things are about a higher quality of life. And just a repercussion of that is increased calorie burn and, fat loss and . So I would say baseline entry point would be 150 minutes. And that's as simple as 5 30-minute walks. If you could do more than that, you like running, great. Do your 150 minutes, do whatever you like to do. I like to play soccer, right? So I'll go play in a hour-long game on a Sunday, and that's 60 of my minutes. I might play in a pickup game, and sometimes we play pickup for like 2 hours, right? So sometimes in 2 soccer games in a week, I get, I get 3 hours of running. And so find how you like to do it. If you like hiking, if you like biking, like swimming, you like playing Frisbee with your kids, you like doing whatever you like to do, rollerblading, roller skating. I don't care. Just get your heart rate up a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. The reason I laughed there is when you have a puppy, you can't walk very fast. So you have to leave the puppy at home.
Oh, and you know this, right? Because you have a puppy.
Yes. That's a whole new world with walking a puppy.
Oh, that's true. And now we've got Teddy, and he's a couple years old, and he he challenges me because there's days where I come home and I'm like, I lifted weights this morning. And I get home from work and he's just staring at me and he's like, we're going on a walk. We're going on a walk. So having an animal can eventually, if you get the right kind of dog, eventually it'll prompt you to walk more. But the puppy stage is fun too.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I would say the fourth is sleep. We talked about this a couple times. And by the way, things like energy balance, things like strength training, things like cardiovascular training help with sleep. In general, the recommendation would be 7 to 9 hours. Now, perhaps you're a woman in menopause and you're like, easy for you to say 7 to 9 hours. It's tougher and tougher. And we understand that. And just know that these other things, when put in place, can start to help with that. Mm-hmm. But you and I were talking before we hit record. I still have work things that come up. You have trouble sometimes shutting off your mind when you're solving a problem during the day, right? Or working on different things. Like that stuff is real. We all still deal with that, but we know some of this sleep disruption can be heightened during menopause. Just know that 7 to 9 hours is the target. That's not selfish. Okay. I used to be very poor at sleep. I used to think I was tough because I got like less than 5 hours of sleep. Like coming out of the military, I thought it was like the cool thing. I get so much done in a day. It was dumb. My health suffered. Okay. But here's just one technique among many, again, not individualized, but if we're looking for some kind of general guidance on this, there's something known as a 3-2-1 technique. And that essentially says, don't eat anything 3 hours before you go to sleep. That's not because eating at night causes weight gain. It's because you want your body to be able to begin the long process of digesting that food. And roughly 3 hours before you go to bed will minimize that digestion interrupting your sleep. Okay. So 3-2-1, be done eating about 3 hours before bed. Number 2, be done drinking any fluid before you go to bed, because if you're anything like me, one of the main reasons I get up in the middle of the night is going to be to go to the bathroom. Okay. So 2 hours before bed, no fluid. And then 1 hour before bed, no screens. So 3-2-1. Does it mean that we do this all the time as the people recording this podcast? No. But if you're struggling with sleep really consistently during menopause, this might be one general technique that could begin to help. And then, of course, remember that, nutrition, strength training, cardio, that will all start to move into sleep, as well as the next one, which is stress management. But anything on sleep, Danielle?
No, that's great. I agree that when you're exercising, you're reducing your stress and you're using your body more. And then hopefully, again, that's going to improve your sleep too. So they all work together.
Yeah. And that's the fifth one, which is stress management. And we'll go too deep into this. There's many different things. There's many different reasons why people have stress. Menopause in and of itself is, a stressful time for women. And just know that as you begin to get your energy balance under control, your strength training, you're doing your walks, you're focusing on your sleep. And, if you're reducing or eliminating alcohol in particular, again, as a direct mechanistic influencer of things like cortisol. And cortisol is widely misunderstood. It's not just, quote, the stress hormone. Like it does a lot of other things, but that's obviously what everyone thinks of right now. And people are doing like cortisol detoxes. I'm like, oh my gosh, don't get me started, right? But the stress management piece, make sure you're focusing on those big blocks. Okay, there's too many people selling too many things that actually don't have impact in the body. But when you talk about energy balance and strength and cardio and sleep, those things have massive implications for your stress management. And like you said before, like having the awareness and the mindfulness that this is going to be a stressful time in the life of a woman, and what are the outlets that you can go to, right? And so whereas you may want to gravitate toward food for, food therapy, in one sense, or crunch therapy, as I've heard some of my clients speak to it, is I need the crunchy food. I need the crunch. I need to bite into something, for stress management. What would it look like to say, I want to start thinking of going on a 5 or 10 or 20 or 30-minute walk as a stress management? What I want to think about listening to beautiful music, right? Or listening to a podcast, or finding other ways, going outside, spending time with a pet, spending time with a child, like channeling, some of that stress management into other outlets as opposed to into more and more food consumption. So yeah. I know you kind of touched on that and then I piggyback, but anything else on stress? And we're about to wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all the tools that you can utilize for all of these things is what we'd love to help you with if you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, these are just generalizations. I hope they're helpful. I hope we hear from you. They're like, I'm not becoming a client, but you guys changed my life. Look, that's what we're here for, right? But at the same time, if you're feel like you're kind of driving on square wheels with this whole thing, and it's just kind of clunky and keeps flopping, we would love to help individualize, contextualize, and help you through this. Again, Danielle and I have worked with women in this menopausal time of life for decades now. In fact, we've even both worked on a client or two together in this area. And so I remember one time we piped you in on the laptop from St. Louis, and we had a couple that came over, and she was menopausal, and we met here in my house, but you were in St. Louis, and we piped you in, and we both helped. So you can choose between us. You can head over to our website and be like, I definitely need Danielle. That Mark guy's super annoying, and I don't want to hear him, rant on our calls, but between Danielle and myself, we would love to help you if possible. And again, these are some general guidelines. We'd be happy to individualize those for you. So if we can help, you can head over to our website again, Imago Nutrition. That's IMAGO nutrition.com. And there's a contact form there. You can just submit your inquiry and say, hey, heard the Menopause podcast, been a little frustrated, curious what this means for me, where I am in my life, and your everyday routine. We can help individualize and contextualize that for you. So with that, if this has been helpful, would love for you to subscribe to the podcast, drop us a review, let us know how we're doing, and share it with a friend. We'd love to help as many people as possible. That's why we do this. You can follow us on social media at Imago Nutrition. That's IMAGO Nutrition across all major social media platforms, including Threads. And as always, we'd like to thank the band Happy Pill for our theme song, Thinkin Bout Food. We'll see you next time.